Je pense sans cesse à toi.
Well, hello there. Welcome to The Foretop. It's a roundtable discussion of today's hot button topics in food and beverage. I'm your host, Catherine Cole. On today's show, we will bite into 3 courses. First, we will talk trash about food waste. Next, we'll debate the baffling recent glorification of breakfast and brunch in culinary culture. And for our third course, Phoning It In, how apps on our phones are simplifying the way we get out to eat. Our esteemed panelists here in the studios of Oregon Public Broadcasting are Erin DeJesus, reports editor at Eater.com. Hey, Erin.
Hi.
And Laura Russell, cookbook author, food writer, and recipe developer. Hi, Laura.
Hello.
And Lucy Burningham, a certified Cicerone travel writer and author of 2 books on beer. Welcome, Lucy.
Thank you.
All right, gang, let's talk trash about food waste. A full third of the food produced in the United States never makes it onto our plates. And food waste seems to have been the cause celeb of this past summer, with a number of articles coming out on the subject that caught our attention. Laura Russell, can you walk us through this horrific problem? At what stages in the food system does food get tossed out? And what do we need to know about it?
This is an enormous topic. And this is something that hit me in the face almost immediately after I started working in the food industry. 20 years ago, I was in culinary school in Chicago, and I was working catering jobs on the weekend just to make some money. We worked one Saturday night. There was this enormous party at the Field Museum in Chicago, and it was fancy, and there were thousands of people. We started cleaning up after the party, and I sort of naively said, well, where do we take all this food? And my supervisor just sort of laughed at me and said, well, what do you mean? It's all for the garbage. And I almost started crying on the spot. The food that was left over from this party could have fed hundreds of people. Mm-hmm. I don't mean that 5 or 10 people on the street may have gotten a bite. This was food, lamb chops and shrimp and, beautiful salads and pastas. This was good food that went directly into the trash. Oof. And it upset me at that moment, and it still upsets me 20 years later. The sort of good news is that it is a hot topic now. So I think there's a lot more awareness now. Food is wasted or lost every step along the way in the food chain. This means there are enormous losses on the farm. Almost 50% of crops are never even harvested. This could be for reasons such as weather. The crops were ruined, but more likely, these are just not vegetables or fruits that are considered attractive, and so grocery stores don't want them. Even though it's a giant problem, there are so many opportunities for change for everyone where I think every person could make a difference. And I'm talking about grocery stores, I'm talking about restaurants, and I'm talking about in our own homes. So, Erin, I would love to ask you, restaurants, they have to keep control of their food costs. They have a lot of waste, but they also have a lot of leftovers. Do you know what restaurants are doing to keep the situation under control?
Absolutely. I think chefs, as you alluded to, are now becoming more in the forefront when it comes to talking about this and sort of informing their consumers about this huge issue. I know other studies have said that, there's a half pound of waste that's created for every meal that is served in a restaurant. And that is both in the back of the house, in the kitchen, which the diner does not see, and in the front of the house, which is the leftovers that the diner chooses to, not take home in their doggy bag. And recently there have been a lot of chefs who are making it more clear that, yes, because of our food costs and the margins and the fact that we need to be very, very careful about how much we're spending on each plate, they're now letting the diner in on that a little bit more and pointing out, how one product is ended up using in several dishes on a menu, for example, like the entire carrot, the entire stalk of celery. I've been seeing a lot recently in chef cookbooks, for example, or if you talk to chefs in interviews and ask, what was the inspiration for this dish? They'll often say, well, actually, we had half of a head of lettuce just sort of lying around, and we needed to do something with it in order to sustain our business and to act responsibly. And so we whipped up this crazy thing, and that's now becoming part of the story that diners are hearing as they sit down, and it's increasingly becoming a part of the story that diners want to hear. Diners don't want to feel complicit in the idea that, oh God, I'm part of the problem and that I'm helping to waste all of this food simply by going out to dinner.
Right. And it's great also, I think, for someone dining at a restaurant to see, oh, I can have roasted carrots, but, oh, look, I could make pesto or something out of the carrot tops. Or, oh, they sautéed the broccoli stems. I don't just have to use the florets. So that's probably a great teaching opportunity even for people not to waste their food in their own kitchens.
Yeah, and it's a point of pride for chefs too to say like, oh, look at this fun thing I was able to think up with this leftover carrot top. It speaks to their creativity a little more, which allows them. Yeah, exactly.
I love the idea that people can start thinking about not eating the most beautiful, perfect food out there, because I think that's part of the problem, right? You go to the grocery store and you choose the nectarine that doesn't have any bruising. It's an even color, when actually the ones with more flavor, have some imperfections. So I think we need to start looking at beauty in food in a different way, and ugly food can taste good too.
The grocery stores will flat out reject these, and part of the reason is because they assume the consumers don't want them.
Oh, we need to do some sort of campaign. Let's embrace the ugly.
Embrace the ugly.
Embrace the ugly. It's absolutely true. And I don't know about you guys, but for me, the uniformity is actually not desirable at all. Like every red bell pepper looks exactly the same. I actually don't want it. I want something with a little more character.
It's something I appreciate in aesthetics in general. And from my perspective with wine, I don't want a wine that tastes perfect. I want a wine that's a little funky and strange. And anything I choose, especially with food, something that has a little character. And you can see this piece of fruit has kind of lived a long and interesting life.
I like to think the ugly fruit and the ugly vegetables have used all their energy to taste good.
Yes.
So they're not as pretty on the outside. But that is, I think perception, even, as a food writer, I think really spreading this message, you don't need a perfectly sized carrot for that carrot to taste good, could help people catch on. What about in your own kitchens? Lucy, what do you do? Do you have any habits, composting or anything?
I have a 5-year-old child, and ever since I had a child, I've noticed that our food waste has gone up dramatically because he doesn't eat everything on his plate. And, I love to snack and eat his food, but kind of try not to. So I'm very sensitive to it, and I have the sense that if I compost, everything's going to be okay. I don't know if you guys have that feeling. I know that it's inaccurate, right? It's still food waste, but there's something about not putting it into the plastic trash can that makes me feel like, well, at least I'm composting. But I'm aware of it at home.
I think that's actually an important part of it, because you always remember, parents saying, oh, finish everything on your plate because children, in such and such country are starving. And realistically, of course, at that point, it's too late, to get the food to someone else.
Yes.
But I think, kitchen management in your homes, just learning to cook, learning to purchase food and not let it rot in your own refrigerator. If you sense something is going bad, cook it, freeze it, pickle it, do something with it. But I do think composting is a huge piece of the puzzle in that food thrown in the actual garbage can or, which ends up in the landfill does create methane gas. It's another part of the problem that has a solution, and composting is a huge part of that.
But Laura, let's be realistic here. I mean, how many of us have time to make pesto out of our carrot tops? I mean, I grew up in this household where my mother would take every scrap of leftover vegetable and make stock, with the turkey bones or whatever, and we always had stock in the freezer, stock in the fridge. I don't have time to live like that.
You're right. And it does, like everything else, it comes down to time. If we buy a rotisserie chicken, I will often use the carcass to make stock. At the same time, if we have a watermelon, I never pickle the watermelon rinds. And I know
I didn't even know you could do that.
Oh, yeah. And that's actually kind of a thing right now. And it's a thing that restaurants are doing to cut down food waste. They'll pickle the rind. But I agree with you. Most people don't have time for that. I think being very careful when you're shopping at these big bulk stores like Costco or Sam's Club, they offer this, our prices are so cheap, but it's not cheap if you're buying food that you throw away. So if you can control your own inventory in your kitchen, I think that's a great first step that most people could get a hold of.
All right, folks. We are going to do this. Moving forward, we're going to save the earth by
have our assignments.
Using our food scraps. Let's take a quick break and discuss what we are secretly sipping as we sit here. We're recording on a warm day, so I brought in a spritzy rosé from Austria. And Laura, what do you see about the name of this rosé?
Well, I see BioCult on the label, and I would love to know a little more about that.
So I love the name of this wine, BioCult, and it's spelled with a K, which is a little disturbing, but let me just assure you that in German, the word cult is spelled with a K. I don't think these winemakers are wandering around in flowing robes, chanting anything. I think they're actually poking fun at themselves because they practice biodynamic agriculture on this big, beautiful farm in Austria. And this is a subject near and dear to my heart because my first book was about biodynamic viticulture. And if you're not familiar with biodynamics, it's kind of like organic agriculture, only there is it's more holistic. It uses herbal remedies on the plants, and then also, this is a little cultish, but there is a spiritual aspect to biodynamic agriculture. So,
Catherine, is it okay if I imagine them wearing robes
yes.
and making wine? Okay, that's what I'm going to do.
So, what do you all think? Do you like it?
I like it. It smells a little minerally. Has a beautiful color. What do you think, Erin?
It's very refreshing now that it's finally getting warm here in Portland, Oregon. So it's a nice afternoon sip.
Mm-hmm. Well, and also this is fairly low in alcohol, so I think this wine would be delicious with breakfast, which brings us to our next course. Lucy Burningham. I seem to recall noshing on pancakes late night after consuming way too much beer back in my 20s. But right now, breakfast has this bizarre cachet as a mainstream evening food genre. The obsession with brunch has even been satirized in the show Portlandia. In fact, let's listen to a little clip.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
So how many?
2.
2, all right. And the name?
Peter.
Peter, all right. Great.
Quick question.
Yeah.
How long until we get seated?
Yeah, it could be maybe an hour and a half.
Oh, you know what? We'll sit at the counter.
Yeah, there's no counter.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So, a table. Is that all right?
And can you is it possible? Can you order it in advance and send the order up to the chef so that it's waiting for us when we get there?
I think maybe you could have gone to McDonald's for that. Maybe you might be at the wrong restaurant.
No way.
Yeah.
So, Lucy, what is going on with this brunch craze?
Oh, it's still a craze, isn't it? I'm a little baffled by all of it, but kind of here's what I think is happening. There are now restaurants that are only serving cereal. So people are just so excited about breakfast foods, right? There's a place in LA that starts serving breakfast at about 10 p.m., so they're kind of the late night breakfast spot. They make cocktails out of milk infused with cereal, with liquor. So we've seen cereal milk around. Yeah, it doesn't sound that great to me. Fruity Pebbles milk with gin was something on their menu. Could be good. I don't know. There's a new website called Extra Crispy that Time Inc. started, and they are hiring a bacon critic, which could be someone's dream job. A
lot of people's dream job.
A lot of people's dream job. It could be kind of fun. So my theory is that this is all about rule breaking, right? If you have breakfast for dinner, you make your waffle even at home, you're breaking the rules. You're, eating something you're not supposed to. And I think even brunch falls into that category. So here's this whole day. You take the middle of the day to wait in line, eat something indulgent, and have a drink. And so I just feel like we're trying to break the rules, and people love to break the rules while eating. So I don't think this is going away anytime soon.
I love the idea of breakfast as rule breaking, which I've never thought about it that way before. But I'm a huge breakfast lover. I'm a fan of Extra Crispy. I think they're doing great work with great writers. And come to think of it, yes, I enjoy eating breakfast at 5 o'clock in the evening if I want to, because I can.
You're an adult. This is what you get to do.
Erin, I'm so surprised. I thought you would be a big food snob about this.
Oh, no, not at all. I love breakfast. Brunch is its own story. Brunch, as the Portlandia clip showed here in Portland, is kind of a blood sport, is what I call it these days. The idea of waiting in line for 3 hours does not appeal to me. But breakfast, I think, has a sort of, it's very democratic. It's very egalitarian. It's very versatile. And I think that's another thing that chefs are really picking up on. Breakfast is generally very inexpensive to make. An egg is often, the least expensive protein people can get their hands on. Culturally, the breakfast foods that I associate with Asian culture, like congee and pho in Vietnam and those sorts of things, they're all very egalitarian. They're the things that people eat on the sidewalk for, under $3 a bowl or dish. And I think that's what really appeals to people, too, the idea that I can make this dish, it's super easy to do, and it's also really delicious.
I hate brunch more than anything. I would never, ever wait in line, probably even for 20 minutes, certainly not for 2 hours. But what you're saying about being egalitarian, what confuses me about the whole thing is breakfast is very affordable. It's also the easiest meal to cook. It's the one opportunity I feel like where everyone is on even ground in the kitchen.
You have a good point, Laura. I mean, I feel like when I go out, I want to go somewhere where they're making something I could never make.
Right,
I
exactly.
do not have the skills to make.
Yes.
But I would argue that lots of these brunch places, or breakfast and brunch places that are very popular right now, do serve breakfast dishes that I personally can't make. I'm not a cook, but the breakfast that I make at home is the bacon and eggs, the very simple things that I grew up with. Whereas people are lining up for, Tasty and Alder, for example, which does lots of sort of Korean-inflected breakfast dishes involving tools that I don't have at home at my disposal. So it pulls on the familiar. There's still an egg on top. You put an egg on it. It's breakfast. And yet there are so many other components and ingredients that I might not be familiar with. So in that way, it's almost a gateway in between those two worlds.
And Tasty and Alder is a restaurant here in Portland, Oregon, where we're taping today. Go ahead, Lucy.
I can totally see your point, Erin, but I think it comes back to this idea of indulgence. It's almost like, who cares what's being cooked? It's this activity. It's this chance to go out in the middle of the day, waste a lot of time. Well, wasting, enjoy. It depends what you think of the line. But I think it's just an indulgence. It's a way people choose to enjoy their free time.
I don't know. So I feel like this is some sort of ironic statement, and it's supposed to kind of fit in with normcore fashion or something. I feel like people eating breakfast at dinner, especially, come on, folks, what is it with these cereal restaurants that just serve cereal a bunch of different ways? I mean, I would rather go get an acai bowl, which is at least sort of an exotic cereal bowl.
Okay, the cereal thing, really, I mean, I'd rather wait in line for brunch than try to understand this cereal thing.
Yeah.
When I first heard of these cereal restaurants, in my head, I thought, oh, well, maybe they're making interesting oatmeals or they're doing, buckwheat groats or sort of some warm cereals. And then I started looking at the menu, and it's truly cold cereal. But, the catch is you get to pick two, and they mix them together.
Which we did in college in the dining hall.
Which too.
Yeah.
And that really does. I mean, I'm baffled by that one.
Erin, can you explain this to us?
Well, are we talking about the cereal restaurant that just opened in New York City, the one in Times Square? Or is there another?
There's one in Brooklyn, too. And then there was one, I think I saw one in like the Dallas airport or something.
Oh, that's probably the case. The one in Times Square that just opened in Manhattan with Christina Tosi, who's actually a very well-known pastry chef. She won the James Beard Award for Outstanding Pastry Chef this year, and she does the cereal milk that is now showing up in cocktails, where she infuses, quote-unquote, milk with cereal, and it's a popular ice cream on her menu. But this one cereal restaurant, she's partnered with Kellogg's, so it's a corporate, very much branded sort of experience in Times Square that I think is sort of touching on the novelty of people, going to Instagram their bowl of cereal and say that I took a photo with Tony the Tiger and then a cardboard cutout of Christina Tosi, which is maybe a little bit different than these other spots that exist. Where
That one sounded a little more interesting to me because I feel like they had desserts on the menu that were using cereal. So it was something that was a little sort of a step above. It was just, I was looking at a menu. I'm not sure which particular restaurant it was, but it was literally just pick 2 cereals and a topping. And I thought that seemed
and milk,
really,
right?
truly
Choose your milk.
like you could do it at home.
That one, yes.
I don't know. A branded experience in Times Square, you've totally lost the food snob side of me. I'm not buying into any of this. I don't even get the brunch thing. I just, I like having my granola and my yogurt and then focusing on having a delicious lunch and a delicious dinner.
I'm with you.
Nothing wrong with that.
How do you choose your favorite breakfast for dinner restaurant? I would guess you could use an app on your phone. Erin DeJesus, our digital doyenne. Let's talk dining apps. Apparently, I am a total Luddite because when we began planning this episode, I was only familiar with OpenTable and Yelp as dining apps, and you informed me that I am way behind the times. So for people like me, can you just walk us through the basic apps that simplify the booking and dining experience for users?
Oh my goodness, where to start? Well, the app space is gigantic right now, and I am also admittedly a bit of a Luddite in that I cannot keep track of every day a new announcement, a new press release. Something is hitting your inbox with something that purports, quote unquote, to make your life easier by using this little tiny square on your phone. That is not always the case. But there are, in my estimation, what we call at Eater, about a half dozen quote unquote categories of apps. But for the purposes of today, we're going to start with 3 of the most common ones. First of all, you mentioned OpenTable, which is restaurant reservations. OpenTable is probably the one that most listeners are familiar with. It's you hop online, there's a list of restaurants. It gives you, a date, time, open things where you can book. You just hit a little button, and OpenTable confirms that restaurant reservation for you. It's super easy, and it's considered widely the leader in the reservation space. Right now, though, there are a bunch of other new ones that are popping up that sort of put a twist on this. OpenTable is free for users. Not for restaurants, but for users. And now there are these new apps, a whole slew of them, that essentially charge you for reservations to hot tables at certain times. So, for example, if it's Saturday night, it's 8 p.m., you've forgotten it's your friend's birthday, you need to get her a table at her favorite restaurant, and it's not on OpenTable, you can go onto an app like Resy or Table 8, for example, where that restaurant will charge you $10 through the app in order to book the exact table and the exact time that you want.
Wow.
So
I had no idea.
How do the restaurants handle that? That seems like a logistical nightmare for them.
the restaurants do partner with the app developers, so they release tables the same way that a concert hall might release tickets for a band, for example. So they do have a control stream on their end, but there is so much conversation happening right now about would you pay $10, for example, to eat at a restaurant if you didn't have to eat there at, 5 o'clock or 11 o'clock at night to snag that hot table?
I would.
Yeah?
Absolutely.
Are
yeah.
these restaurants that take reservations otherwise?
Some of them do, and some of them actually don't.
Because
so,
I definitely paid $10 to get a reservation at a restaurant that doesn't take reservations.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yes.
which
Talk
is a
about
whole
lines.
other problem, restaurants
Right.
refusing to do so. But yeah, and then that also leads to an ethical question. Is it okay for this restaurant to charge an extra $10 when they decided otherwise we're not going to take your reservation, but we'll take it for money? So it's a sort of digital version of, slip in the concierge or the maitre d' at 20 to get the table that you want at the exact time that you want.
Interesting.
Seems fair to me. And people are always canceling last minute, so I would assume that some of those tables could be snapped up by people on that app.
Yep, they're not always for pay. Sometimes that exact scenario will happen, and they'll just release a table into the wild, and it's your lucky day if you happen to snag it. But no, there's a lot of conversation right now about how people are monetizing their tables, and it's
Well, what if restaurants started creating like a first class zone? I mean, it could get even crazier, right?
Oh, you're right. That's already true. People purchase a dinner in the chef's kitchen, but oh my goodness.
counter. Yeah.
That could get out of hand. You're right.
Definitely.
But that's interesting. I'm actually not a person, unless there were certain circumstances, who would pay an extra $10 for my table at 7.
Because you just go somewhere else.
I would just go somewhere else.
But you get to go out all the time.
Yeah, that's true. Not
It's your job.
That's fair. So that's what's happening in reservations right now. Another major category with another major brand name that you all are probably familiar with is the recommendation space, aka the where do I eat space. Foursquare, which was until very recently a social media app, where you would show up to your bar and check in, and you would maybe get some sort of recognitions for doing so. But mostly it was to see where your friends were at certain times. Has sort of pivoted away from that now, and now they consider themselves a discovery app. Discovery being the hot new buzzword in the recommendations space. So now what the Foursquare app is designed to do is to sort of learn your preferences based off of places that you've gone in the past, things that you search for, things that you say that you liked within the app, in order to better give you a recommendation of where you should eat next time you happen to find yourself in XYZ neighborhood. So Foursquare is sort of in that space now. I don't know if anybody here uses it. I am not a Foursquare user.
I haven't used it, but where is that content coming from? So how are the recommendation? Well, I get how the recommendation is generated, but can restaurants pay to put themselves on the list of places that are recommended to the users, or is it someone's opinion?
That's a great question. I think I'm not 100% on this. I think it's a conglomeration of certain things. For example, I know Eaters Maps we have a partnership in Foursquare in which some of our recommendations will pop up, but I do think they cull from several sources, throw it all into this AI that I am not equipped to understand, and then pop it out back towards you.
I played around with Foursquare, and I have to say, to me, it seemed a lot like Yelp in that I tried to say I want to follow these cool people. These are my tastes. You could enter all these specific tastes that were specific to you. I was so excited. And then it kept pulling up a crappy pizza place as the best restaurant in the town I was searching. And I was thinking, I know there's some fantastic restaurants in this town. Why is this subpar pizza place always at the top? So I have a feeling they're still kind of relying too heavily on recommendations, who are all the friends of the person who owns the restaurant.
I definitely have trouble, especially when I'm traveling to a city where I don't know the restaurant culture and I'm trying to find places to eat. I definitely have issues with the apps. Well, certainly with Yelp, things that are a little too crowdsourced. You'll start reading about a restaurant, and as soon as you see that someone has written, I'm deducting a star. There was too much ice in my Sprite. That's when I'm like, okay, I need to get off this site completely. But I have not found my ideal system yet, other than basically colleagues that have written about cities, or I do use Eater quite a bit when I travel.
Thank you.
Have you guys heard of this Text Rex app? So I tried it out because I was quite curious. And what it is you can text some person or some group of people for recommendations.
Oh.
So, hey, I'm in Portland, Oregon. I want to go out for pizza tonight. What would you recommend? And then you can have a text conversation with someone. But the flaw is, who is this person and where are they getting their information? It kind of felt like texting with a friend, and that was really cool. But I don't know who this person is, and why would I trust them?
We've asked them, we've done stories about text Rex. Where do you find these people? Like, what are their qualifications, essentially, for giving them this role? And it's often just like, these are just people who are very interested in their local communities or cheerleaders for their restaurants. But that says nothing of their taste or what else they might be informed by that you don't know about. Are they friends with this restaurant owner? All these sorts of questions. But yes, that is one that has a very human component. Did it weird you out?
It did weird me out. And I actually asked whomever I was texting with, I said, are you a bot? Because I'm like, is this a person or a bot? And their reply was, no, are you?
Wait, and then did they say, where are you staying? Are you there now?
What are your plans tonight?
Can I come over?
Do you want to meet for a drink? Yeah.
Wait, but this brings up, did anyone try Luca? You mentioned Luca, Erin, when we were discussing this before this segment. Talk about bots. It is so confusing. Did you guys check this out? Prince can talk to you. It's a Prince bot.
That's new. I have not seen that.
I ended up with the Prince bot also and just was like, what does this have to do with restaurants? I have no idea what's going on.
There is so much going on there that has nothing to do. I completely lost track of the restaurant thing and just went down this dark tunnel of I don't know. Prince.
I'm with
talking
you,
to
Catherine.
Prince.
It was strange.
Wait, so what did he recommend? Like, what did you?
I feel like it was just words of wisdom, wasn't it?
I ended up talking to him about Gwen Stefani. So, again, nothing to do with restaurants. I don't know, you guys. That one might be leaving my phone pretty soon.
Yeah.
Saying goodbye to Luca.
Man,
Time suck.
The thing about recommendations, which is really funny, and I say this all the time, is whenever people ask you, like personally, for a restaurant recommendation, what they really want to know is, I want to go here. Is it any good? They'll ask, like, oh, I'm in this neighborhood and I'm looking for something in this price range. And you'll give off 6 choices and they'll say to you, oh, actually, I was thinking about this place. So recommendations are a hard one to pin down, what the user or reader or whomever is actually asking.
Okay, so what about rewards? How can our apps give us rewards?
Rewards are one of the spaces where I think apps actually do a fantastic job. 2 of the bigger ones in the market, and these are, huge fast food chains, are Chick-fil-A and Starbucks. Starbucks has a rewards app, which again I don't use. I'm sorry. that is considered the standard bearer when it comes to food rewards. It's as simple as you check in, you make your purchase, the app gives you a little star. After you collect enough of them, you redeem them for a free whatever at Starbucks. What's really interesting now is that independent restaurateurs and developers are trying to get in on the space. Obviously, it's something that consumers really love. They love the idea of being a regular somewhere and being rewarded for it. And one place that is actually, I think, doing it very well is Portland-based, as it turns out, and it's the Chew dining app, which is created partly by Chef's Table, which is a restaurant group here in town. And what they've done that I think is really smart is they worked with another independent developer here in Portland, and they've linked all, I think it's 13 or 14 restaurants in the Chef's Table family together within one app. And it's as simple as you download it to your phone, you go visit Lardo, the sandwich place, for example, you punch in a little number that the receipt gives you, and I'll mark that visit as one visit. So after 6, you can go back and get a free sandwich, or you could trade that for whatever. It functions as a network within those restaurants.
What I love about that that example in particular is I think they're really trying to establish the customer's preference. So you do feel like a guest and that they're trying to get to know you. So let's say they can track that you are, you have a history, maybe you're gluten-free. Then when they bring something, your freebie that you've earned to the table, they're not bringing you, say, bruschetta or, something that you wouldn't even be able to eat. They might see, you've repeated certain items you like, and then they can really customize it to the diner.
Yes.
So one of my questions about these apps, because, for example, the Chick-fil-A one, are these just a way to prevent us from having to interact with other humans? You put your order in, you pay for it on your phone, you walk up to a place, you pick up your bag, and it takes the human element out of ordering food.
But that's what I liked about Chew, because once you've earned your reward, you kind of have to interact with someone at the restaurant and say, hey, I am a regular. I've been here 10 times. And then I feel like whoever's helping you will be like, hey, that's awesome. What's your name? Let's get to know each other. So I think the Chew app was actually pretty good for interacting, but I totally see your point, Lucy.
Best of both worlds, it sounds like.
Yes. And payment and delivery. And yes, absolutely. They're working towards automation. But yes, the Chew app and I think rewards ones more than others do try to develop that sense of community amongst its users and the restaurant owners, because again, these are your regulars. They want to know what you're eating. Some people might find that creepy. I personally, I could go either way.
My eating habits.
Yeah. Just no brunch for dinner. Okay, well, since we're talking about rewarding ourselves, let's reward ourselves with a little dessert. I will go first. I want to circle back to the app topic with my dessert item today. I recently went on vacation, a family vacation to Charleston, South Carolina. And if you haven't been reading about it, or if you haven't visited recently, it is a fantastic food town. And I just want to say thank you to Open Table and also in small part to Yelp, because it sure makes travel easy when you can just book everything in advance. I went to all the best restaurants in Charleston. I had my reservations in advance, and then in a couple cases, I would be out and about during the day just talking to locals, and they'd say, oh, you don't want to go to that restaurant. Or I should do my southern accent. You don't want to go to that restaurant because that's been open for too long. You want to try this new one. That was a terrible accent. Sorry. And so I could just get on my phone, cancel the reservation I had, make a new reservation right on my phone. I didn't inconvenience the restaurant by waiting till 5 minutes before to cancel. It just makes traveling so much easier. So I just want to tell you all the awesome places I ate. I ate at Husk, The Ordinary, McCrady's, The Grocery, Two Boroughs Larder, all of those through apps. Thank you, apps. And then I tried to stumble into Edmund's Oast. It was completely packed, and I stumbled into Butcher and Bee instead, which was right across the way. All fantastic restaurants. So download those apps and go visit Charleston and eat. That's what I have to say.
That sounds like a great eating trip.
Will you invite us next time, Catherine?
Oh, so good.
I'd like to go.
All right, who's next? Laura, give us some dessert.
Mine ties back to the food waste conversation, and really one of the innovative ways people are coming up with to solve the problem. So there's a restaurant in Kochi, India, and the restaurant installed a small refrigerator on the sidewalk right outside of their restaurant. And it's one of those, see-through sort of beverage type refrigerators. And at night, the restaurant packages up their leftovers, and labels and dates them, puts them in the fridge so anyone nearby who needs something to eat can just come take it directly out of the fridge. And they have their employees cleaning out the refrigerator 2 or 3 times a week. So they're keeping control of making sure nothing has spoiled. It, of course, will always depend on local laws. But I love that idea as just a solution. Why dump this in the trash when we could serve? I read that they're serving almost up to 100 meals a day with their leftovers.
That's fantastic.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
I love those good ideas.
What do you have for us, Lizzie?
Well, mine's a little bit less altruistic, but I'm going to talk about beer. Did you guys know that some brewers are making beer using yogurt? They are actually putting yogurt into beer as part of the fermentation process. Not many people realize that bacteria plays a big part in making beer. And so what they're really wanting is lactobacillus, which is in yogurt. So instead of adding that, they just plop some yogurt in, and you end up with this wonderfully sour, tart, a little acidic flavor profile.
That's
and
cool.
I highly recommend.
How does it go with granola?
A yogurt beer. Yeah, for breakfast.
I love that.
For breakfast, for dinner.
That's right. Any time of the day.
All right, Erin, take us home. What do you have?
My dessert actually has to do with dessert. Is everyone here familiar with the Great British Bake Off?
Yes.
It is a reality show that it is my new obsession. Long story short, this is a show that's been on for 6 seasons in the UK on BBC One, and it very recently came stateside and is actually currently airing on PBS, of all places. But it is the antithesis of every American reality cooking competition. It is so undramatic and unfailingly polite, and just there's no backstabbing, there's no yelling. It is such a delight to watch, and to watch the inherent drama of, because these people are so supportive and lovely to each other, the drama really, comes from, oh my gosh, will this dough rise or not? And it's just an amazingly soothing and calming and lovely, 45 minutes of television. So if anybody is even tangentially interested in baking or just needs something to sort of calm their nerves in these current times, the Great British Baking Show.
That sounds fantastic. All right. Well, thanks to our wonderful panelists today. Again, they were Erin DeJesus, reports editor at eater.com.
Thanks so much.
And Lucy Burningham, a certified Cicerone travel writer and author of 2 books on beer.
Thanks for having me.
And Laura Russell, cookbook author, food writer, and recipe developer.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Hey, folks, please pull up a chair to our table. We had too much fun today. We need you to join us and subscribe to The Foretop on iTunes or however you get your podcasts. At facebook.com/theforetop, you can join our conversation and suggest topics for us to discuss. After you like our page, of course. And tweet us, please, at the numeral 4 top, all one word. Today's show was recorded at Oregon Public Broadcasting in the high-fiber, protein-packed city of Portland, Oregon. Our show editor and co-producer is Alex Ward. Special thanks to OPB sound supervisor Stephen Cray. I hope you can join us for our next episode, and please tell your friends about the Foretop and give us some loving feedback in iTunes. Ciao! Did anyone leave a tip?